Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Venus and today I'm doing my fail of a June wrap up. So my June TBR was super ambitious and I severely failed at reading all of the books on my June TBR. There were 13 books on my June TBR. I read 5 of them. One of them was a DNF. So while I only read 5 books, I did, out of the 5 books, 3 of them were 5 stars. I will also say I got into a significant reading slump in June, which greatly affected how many books that I read. But I'm also getting over COVID, so I apologize if the energy is a little low because the fatigue from getting over COVID is real. I am still not 100%, but I'm definitely feeling much, much better. So I missed making videos, so here we are. If you're new to my channel, I created a 22 books in 2022 that I wanted to get through this year, and every month on my TBR I do like this spin the wheel thing where it just randomly picks from one of those books. They're all on my physical TBR. Last month it was, what was it last month it was Pet Sematary and Empire of the Vampire. So I did do a vlog for Pet Sematary. I'll talk about Pet Sematary a little briefly later. But after that vlog, because it only took me like 2 or 3 days to read Pet Sematary, I decided that I was gonna also vlog reading Empire of the Vampire. And unfortunately, that did not go quite as planned. I got some really cool B-roll because I was visiting some family in Southern Maryland, so I'll kind of maybe play that while I'm talking about why I DNF'd this book. This was one of my most anticipated reads of 2022. Currently on Goodreads, it has like a 4.43 rating with over 20,000 reviews, and I just could not finish it. It took me 2.5 weeks to get through, I think like, where am I, 350 pages? Yeah, I'm halfway through it. And I just struggled with it. I was starting to like really dread having to pick it up. I don't know if I just wasn't in the mood for it or what it was, because overall I think J. Kristoff's writing is very entertaining. It's about vampires. I love vampires. The lore that he was kind of describing about the vampires and how they came to be and their powers and restrictions on their powers and all of that was super interesting. I don't know if it's the format of how the story was told that was kind of putting me into a slump. So this is about Gabriel. He's like a vampire slayer. One of the best vampire slayers, and he's captured and he's being held prisoner by vampires, and one of the vampires is interviewing him and he wants to know kind of his whole story, like how he became to be this amazing vampire slayer. And so you're going back and forth from him being present with the vampire that's interviewing him and also telling his story in kind of disjointed timeline, so he'll kind of jump around from different parts of his life. And I don't know if that was what was kind of putting me in a slump, or I don't know. This is definitely not going to be like a permanent DNF. I hope to go back to it and finish it at some point, maybe in the fall, I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, Gabriel is a great character. He uses combination of profanity words that I have never heard of before. It's quite entertaining, and he's got a really cool sense of humor. He's, you know, a badass, and the overall story was interesting. I honestly, I don't know. I don't know why this book put me in a slump, but I will say, don't deter yourself from reading this. I think ultimately it will be a good book. But for me, right now, I had to put it down because 2.5 weeks went by and I didn't finish a book. So for now, this is a DNF. So the one romance that I read for the month of June was actually a NetGalley arc that I received, and it is called American Royalty by Tracey Livesay. And I was super excited to read this book because it's supposed to be kind of like a Meghan Markle, Prince Harry retelling, like romance retelling. And I was like, oh, it's going to be so dreamy and cute, and unfortunately, I didn't really like it that much. I gave it 3 stars. I think the writing was pretty good. It was pretty okay. I feel like I will read another book by this author, but just the relationship between, so Duchess is an American rapper, really big career, and she's kind of going through this like social media war with this other artist that wants to be popular as well. So it's giving her bad publicity. So she's kind of taken a step back and and is also trying to manage, I guess, a makeup company that she wants to be really successful so she doesn't have to be a rapper for the rest of her life. And she gets the opportunity to go over to England for, I can't remember if it's like some like musical convention or I don't remember, but she gets to go over there to perform, and she ends up meeting the prince. And the royal family, they're all a bunch of jerks the way they're described, and it's like instant attraction between her and Jameson, and I just didn't really believe the relationship. It was kind of like forced, and some of the dialogue between them was cringy, and the overall story I just didn't really like it that much. The next book that I read was Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief by Riordin. I mean, I feel like most people know what this book is about. I have actually never read the series. None of my kids really got into it, so it just never really crossed my mind, but I did really enjoy the movies when they came out. And so Jay from Captured by Words started a read along with this series. So I was like, oh, that's cool. I could read this kind of, as a palate cleanser, or kind of a not so in-depth read when my brain isn't functioning like today. But I enjoyed this. It was super cute. So this is middle grade fantasy. It is about Percy, who is a half-blood, so he's half human, half god, and great Greek mythology weaved throughout this story. There's creatures and quests and adventure, and he's got a great group of friends, and I had so much fun reading this. So I definitely cannot wait to continue on with this series, because the audiobooks were really good and they're quick reads. So I really, really enjoyed my time reading this book. So the next 3 books are all 5-star reads. This is Stephen King, Pet Sematary. I did a whole vlog about it, so I won't go too much into it, but it's a horror. Probably one of my favorite Stephen King books so far. It was super, I felt like it was super creepy at parts. It kind of deals with some themes that kind of, freaked me out a little bit. I don't want to kind of spoil it for anyone who doesn't really know too much about it, but ultimately it's about, oh God, what's his name? Dr. Lewis Creed, who ends up moving to Maine and taking a new job, and he's living on this house that is kind of there's a really active road in front of his home, and he becomes really good friends with his neighbor who lives across the street, and his name is Judd, and he's kind of like a father figure to him throughout this book. I love their relationship. Judd's character was actually one of my favorite characters in this book. I highly recommend it. For my more coherent thoughts on it, please check out my vlog. I will link that above. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this book. So the next book that I read was Upgrade by Blake Crouch. This is actually my book of the month copy because I loved it so much. I wanted a copy, but I did receive an ARC of it. I wanted to talk about it before it came out, but COVID didn't allow that to happen. So, but I loved this book so much. I've only read Dark Matter by Blake Crouch is the only other book that I've read by him, but so far he is becoming a favorite sci-fi author for me. He really, really reminds me of Michael Crichton, who really got me into reading sci-fi. Jurassic Park is one of my favorite books. Timeline, I think Prey is one of his books. I love Michael Crichton. It's been a while since I've read some of his books, but Blake Crouch is making me want to go back and reread Michael Crichton because I feel like their styles are similar. I don't know. There was something just about the way Blake Crouch interweaves science to, our real world, and it makes you feel like, oh my gosh, could this really happen? What if this really could happen? It really, really makes you think, and that is totally how Upgrade is. I love this book, I think a little more than Dark Matter because it really, really made me think. It touches on themes with, how we love each other, how we treat each other, how we treat the environment. And without going too much into it, it is about Logan, who has been affected by, I guess I'll say, a virus that has hacked his genome, altered his DNA, and it's made him into this superhuman. And he can read really fast and hear things really well and can almost not necessarily read your mind, but study you so well that he knows what your next actions are going to be before you do them. I thought the pacing was very, very good. The action, there's some action scenes in here that I kept reading it and I was like, oh my gosh, this reminds me of Jason Bourne or Bourne Identity movies. That's how I was envisioning a lot of the scenes in this book. I could totally see this becoming a movie. I gave it 5 stars. I've kind of seen some other people's reviews where they're not really enjoying it quite as much as his other books, but I don't know, maybe it's just me. And if you've been around for a while, you know my reviews are all personal. I don't dig into themes. I don't analyze stuff. No, it's like, how much did I enjoy reading this? I could not put it down. It was like nonstop. So I loved it so much. Felt like how he handled the topics in this book around the environment and how we treat each other and humans and, you know, all of that. I think he did a great job at it. And I like bawled my eyes out at the end of this book. It was so good. I will definitely read this again, and I highly recommend it. Even if you're not into sci-fi, I don't feel like the science jargon is that deep. It's just kind of talking about DNA and some genetics. He does go a little deep into some of it at some points, but it's not too much where you're not going to understand it and it's not going to affect your enjoyment of reading this book. So please read it. I loved it, and definitely a new favorite author as well. And the last book that I read, this is probably my favorite book of June, was Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. And this is the second book in the Farseer trilogy, and I loved it, I think, more than the first book. I think so. 5-star read for sure. We're continuing to follow Fitz. He's a royal bastard, and he is really coming into his own. He really goes through some hard stuff. There's some romance in this book. By the way, I didn't really like Molly. I'm not gonna lie. She probably wasn't, I didn't really like her. I'm sorry. She got on my nerves. I didn't like her. She's the love interest in here. And, but other than that, I so enjoyed this book. There's an animal companion in here that is probably my favorite animal companion out of any book that I've read so far. Absolutely loved him so much. There's a character in here that I hate with like a passion. The ending of this book was so good. It was like I could not stop reading it. I think I stayed up really late to finish it because I needed to see what happened. So I am really looking forward to reading the third book. I am saying this, and I feel like I've said this ever since I've started reading Robin Hobb, but if you have not read any of her books, please, they are so good. I hate that I took so long to read them because I was super intimidated by them, just because everybody talked about how her prose was amazing, and there's a lot of different, I don't even know how many books are in this world, but I don't feel like you're not going to get into them. You definitely will, because her writing is beautiful. But not even that, just the character development of so many of the characters in this book, including Fitz, but even the side characters, the development of them is just so good. It's so good. Audiobooks are great too. If the kind of length of this kind of scares you, listen to an audiobook because they're really well done. So I highly recommend it. I feel like my wrap up was pretty incoherent because I definitely can feel that I'm not 100%, but I wanted to talk about them because it was like a fail of a month, but then not so much because I did have most of them I really enjoyed. So I will say I'm definitely out of my reading slump. I've already read like I think 7 or 8 books so far for the month of July, so I'm back at it. Well, probably most of it because I was in bed for like 3 or 4 days straight, but yeah, it's definitely over my reading slump. So I'm looking forward to talking about all the books that I've read so far in July, and I hope you guys are having a good reading month as well. As always, thank you for stopping by. I am sorry about these sporadic videos that I post. There's no good schedule that I'm on right now just because things keep popping up, but ultimately I am still here and I am still loving reading, and you will see more of me because I am doing Summerween. So I talked about that in my July TBR. So I'm actually reading some scary books right now that I will talk about in a vlog. I hope you guys all have a fantastic day. Thank you as always for stopping by. I truly appreciate it. Please hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you guys again soon. See ya.